Okay, we are recording. Mark Gardner, how are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I have been flying around a bit today, and I have recently got to the studio. It's a bit cold in here because I haven't had the heat on. So hence I'm keeping coats and hats on. But I'm good. I did an interview here with Under the Radar as well, which is really good.
Oh, right.
Uh, so
Okay.
so
Wonderful.
yeah.
Right. I better up my game. Uh,
No, you don't know. It's all good. I've spoken to Don before quite a lot, so it's all good. But I mean, no, this is my world is like studio.
yeah.
Then now there's suddenly quite a lot of ride press to do because people seem to like the record, which is nice.
Wonderful.
And then when I'm not doing that, I'm basically looking after my daughter at weekends. And then when I'm not doing that, it means that I'm away doing shows with rides. So that's pretty
Lovely.
much my life
Lovely.
in a sixpence, whatever you call it.
So, for people that can't see this, you're in a rather lush looking studio. So, what's the deal with that? Is that where Ride kind of create their magic?
Well, so the deal with this is that I stupidly sold my house in Oxford, which I was fortunate to buy when I was 21.
Hmm.
And that was when we first signed a deal with Sire Records. And our manager at the time said, just put a bit of money down on a house. A house? What? I was thinking about that. But anyway, it was a good move. So we had to, because houses were affordable then. So I did that, and then obviously that appreciated in value, and I sold it, and then I put the money into this studio. So I've always wanted a sort of creative space to do, my thing. I was kind of tired of going to other studios, which are okay. So I wanted to create something here to make the world come to me rather than me revolve around the world. And yeah, I mean, basically this has been going for 5 years, I think. And this is Old School Sound now. And basically, yeah, you're right. This is where pretty much 90% of the Ride record was recorded. And this was also the first time, I guess, in a way, the band felt that we'd got a kind of home sort of studio.
Mm.
However, in saying that, I would say that it felt great for a while. But then, initially I was kind of just, because we just got together post COVID, and it was great because we could kind of come in for a few weeks at a time to start, playing without the feeling the pressure of the clock and money mounting up. And at that point, I was much more kind of hands on the console, and it was quite hard to sort of be the guy in the band. But that was fine because that was the way it kind of worked. So I kind of looked after the engineering and sort of mixing of the early stuff as we went, and we laid a lot of tunes down in that way, which then did become a lot of the songs for this new album. And then also I did end up finding myself cooking and cleaning, and and then I hit a point where I'm like, Jesus, the guy's got the studio. What an absolute nightmare! I'm exhausted doing all of this. So, at that point, at a certain point, I kind of put the SOS call out to management. It's like, I need help here. We need to get people in now, and that's when Richie Kennedy came in, and that was brilliant because he was just like he just liberated me. Then suddenly I could like then get in the band because
Yeah.
it's okay to sort of you can't you can kind of wear a few hats at once, but then
Mhm.
it just gets stupid after a while. So that was great because then I suddenly was like, okay, now I can just be back in creative mode with Riot in a way. So yeah, rather than thinking about what out of 40 mics might not be, functioning correctly and all the rest of it that
Yeah.
comes with being engineer and all of that stuff. So yeah, but I mean, do you know what? It felt amazing to do that here. And in a way, at times when I was doing bits of recording here, I mean, just having the music and the songs here, maybe people had left and I was just left with this beautiful music that I could just have some time to think about and to really get my head around and work in that way. It felt great. And it just felt like this was exactly the reason why I made this stupid move of sort of selling a house and putting money into a proper studio like this at this time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, also to back end it, I did also have a sort of separation with my former partner like 3 years ago. So I did actually end up living in here for like the best part of 3 years. So that wasn't the plan, but because I sold my house, you know what I mean? So it was
Of
like,
course.
but anyway, so it's kind of it was a roof over my head for a while and my workspace, which was, but that's it. And here I am. I don't live here anymore. So that's kind of, and that feels a lot healthier again.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
That's a long answer, but there you go. That's kind of what's been going on over the last few years.
Wonderful. Well, look, let's kick off your playlist, Mark. And I always ask guests first for track one to tell me the song that they regard as having the greatest ever intro, please.
Yeah, so I remember. So I think it's got to be Rolling Stones' "Gimme Shelter," and because I remember. I mean, at times I just remember every time I hear that track, I just think, what an intro.
Yeah,
so so when you asked me that question, I'd sort of immediately thought it's got to be that. "Give Me Shelter." It's just what a vibe, what a song, and yeah, that sort of tremolo-y, atmospheric guitar.
yeah.
I just love it. It's just so good. So yeah, that's "Give Me Shelter" for me for sure.
Mark, I'm always interested with asking songwriters and producers
Mm,
and engineers and such about intros,
mm,
and and I think the way that people get their music now is probably way different to how they first got early ride records, which probably would
sure.
have been records. And this is
Those things called records. Yeah, I remember
that's
those.
right.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
wonderful things are,
yeah,
and it would have been pre-streaming, and we're seeing, I guess, sort of pop acts and such utilizing things like TikTok to get their music out and heard by a new audience.
yeah.
And I just wonder, because a lot of that kind of pressure is to utilize them is I guess is to get heard as quickly as possible, because you're in the midst of thousands of records at everybody's disposal instantly.
Yeah, I sort of say it's like a bit of a hailstorm in a way. It's like
Absolutely.
and your little sort of bit of hail, you've got to somehow make stand out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Somehow it's really hard. Yeah,
And so does the pressure that puts on, I guess, artists that maybe don't have the inbuilt following that Ride have. Do they have to kind of just go, right, look, let's don't bore us, get to the chorus type of approach of like grab them instantly, because we're in the midst of this hailstorm, to quote what you said there.
mm,
And obviously, historically, when I was listening to early Ride records, I guess to use two obvious examples, you've got Leave Them All Behind, which is this long, expansive intro. And
yeah,
then you've also got Taste, which is like bang, straight in.
yeah.
And like, what was the kind of mindset then, and what is the mindset now with intros when you approach it?
Look, I take it beyond the intro a bit and just kind of go when that feeling when you get a great tune together. Um, sometimes it just feels like it's a sort of a magical thing that happens which transcends everything, and then it could make an intro a lot easier to sort of happen because it's almost like lyrics write themselves and the tunes write themselves in a way, but of course it doesn't exactly work like that. But there is a real, it's a hard one because I don't think I can be that calculated about it in a way. And it just feels that a certain song, um, obviously something to go back to your examples like Leave Them All Behind is a very much a sort of trancey, it sort of works on being a bit of a mantra trance like thing that goes round and around. So I think it can take the long intro in that way, whereas like you say, Taste is just much more of a quicker pop song in a way, and it needs to just get on with it.
Mm,
and I think, yeah, I think it's really, really hard. I mean, it's always hard to how do you make your music stand out, and what sort of pulls the listener in. And I mean, even I was, I've started sort of listening to when I go into London and stuff. I just started putting my earplugs in and just listen to things. And I remember I was thinking about this as well because I think a band that obviously quite heavily influenced by The Cure did that really well as well. Like that song like a night like this, or Sinking on the Head on the Door album. I was listening to those tracks a week ago when I was going into London. Just thought, God, what beautiful moods that is set up already, and then a vocal comes in. So yeah, I don't know. I just think the song dictates it all in the end. But then I really like soundtrack music. Ennio Morricone is a real god for me,
mm.
and so it it's just he's a god and John Barry in that way, because they just set a beautiful mood with the instrumentation on what they do. Immediately, it's transporting, it's taking you somewhere, and that's the ultimate sort of challenge. I think if you can get that kind of thing into a song without it being obviously, any more, but in that way, then I think the people are on board. They're on it. They're on the journey, and then it's, they're with you. But I don't know exactly what that is, and I'm glad that I'm never really ever going to quite understand that. I sort of feel it when bands come in and do it, but it's really hard to sort of say exactly what that is, because it's just such a sort of feeling thing, and it's a sort of something that is a bit intangible in a way. And I'm really glad that it is like that, because it keeps this really interesting.
Absolutely. I think the last time I see you was actually supporting the Cure. You supported the Cure at Hyde Park, right?
We did, yeah. That was a big show. That was when England had just beaten.
That's right.
Sweden, was it?
Yeah, it was scorching day. It was so hot as well.
Scorching and very.
Wasn't a good day for goths. The makeup was running everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it was a high day in that way, because it was suddenly like, well, actually England are looking pretty decent now. That's just taken pretty much a lifetime to start seeing the team starting to be good. You know what I mean? And it was just buzzy, and really buzzy. That whole day was buzzy, and obviously, like, anytime you get to support the Cure, that's huge, and just so much respect for the Cure and Robert Smith. I love him, and it's just so nice when your heroes just turn out to be just like top people. And he's definitely one for me. So no, it was great, and it's a huge show. I don't think we had any inkling that it was. I just remember kind of coming out, it's just like a sea of people, like, wow, I wasn't really expecting this, but it was good. I do remember that being a great day. I think I got driven off a bit earlier because I was sort of heading towards the thing of like being a bit too high spirited and getting completely out of my head at a certain point. So I remember my tour manager putting me in a car saying, "I'm getting you back to Oxford now." I was like, okay. I was having sort of on the verge of having way too much fun, if you know what I mean.
Fantastic. I'm going to take you back for track 2 and ask you, please, Mark, to tell me the first song that you remember hearing that had an emotional impact on you, please.
Yeah, it was a weird one, because when I looked at that, I mean, obviously, I suppose some songs that mum and dad would have played, from Bread to whatever, would have, I don't know, they used to play the Beatles and bits, would have done. But I really remember distinctly going on early sort of teenage holidays to St Ives with a couple of mates. And I remember it was a sort of classic sort of teenager holiday. You might have kind of met a girl down there and had a snog or something, and I remember sort of thinking, wow, it was just that first times of meeting women, and being out with your friends in a different place, that's a song title as well, but in St Ives. And then I remember my mate, but I guess we had like a Walkman. It was like a cassette tape Walkman, and he was like, "You got to check this out." And it was that long version of "Say Hello, Wave Goodbye," Soft Cell, with I think it's a clarinet intro. It goes on for ages. And I remember we were leaving on the train to go back to Oxford from Cornwall, and it was I just had that such a sort of hearty, heavy feeling of like, we've just had this great time. I think I might have fallen in love with one of those girls, sort of like, and we're leaving on a train, and we'd probably never see them again. And it's like, and this song just played it over and over and over again, and it just seemed to be so perfect for that mood. And I just think, I don't remember ever feeling as emotional, and it just hit me so hard. There we go. That's another long intro track. Yeah. That's why I said particularly the extended one, because it goes on that beautiful, sure it is a clarinet or something, I think it's beautiful. And it just, and then the words, say hello, wave goodbye, I don't know, it just really had a big impact to me, that track. So that's why that one sort of popped out when I saw that question.
That's a beautiful record. Have you seen, I think they may even have released it as an album, but they kind of retired, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, and they played the O2. And needless to say, they finished with Say Hello, Wave Goodbye. And if you ever get 5 minutes on YouTube, watch that performance, because I have this weird thing with like goosebumps when I hear crowds singing. It
Yeah,
just blows my mind. And hearing the crowd singing that last chorus, when you get the
yeah.
synth kind of echo, like, sort of draws you into the chorus coming. Oh my life.
It's
It
like,
is,
take your
oh
hands off
mate.
me.
Oh,
It's so, I know it's a real, God,
because
yeah, it really does.
it's the lead up bit that we're just strangers meeting for the first time to say hello, wave goodbye, and
Yeah,
then it soars, and it's like, oh my god,
yeah.
it's absolutely beautiful. Mark Orman's voice is different level. It's
Oh,
like, it's so good.
just brilliant, genius, and what a band. You know, I mean, yeah, I mean, also was it Bedsitter Genius as well? Obviously,
Oh,
Tainted Love, but
great.
I mean, yeah, those really were early tunes for me again. And I just felt the, you know, really, yeah, they're like the goosebump thing for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, every time, brilliant. That's
You mean,
brilliant. Yeah, I'll check that out. Yeah.
yeah, you honestly, it's beautiful. You just referenced sort of mum and dad listening to Beatles and Bread and stuff like that.
Mm.
But growing up was in Oxford, I presume,
Yeah, it was.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
and was home musical.
Yeah, it was. My mum, I think my mum, so my mum and dad stayed together, but I think I didn't get on. I mean, they're okay. You know what I mean? It's classic sort of married couple with kids, which of course, you know, I get now, although I'm separated. But I mean, you know, so, and I think my mum's solace, and my mum just always turned to music to, and my dad listened to music as well, but my mum always had music on. She was always playing music. And I think, you know, my mum's escape was a cigarette and listen to music all the time. And I mean, you know, that was kind of anything from, you know, Barbara Streisand. She loved Barbara Streisand, and there's a few of those tunes as well, which I just think are beautiful too. Um, but yeah, so she was really the one that there was always music on for sure. So it was musical, and even now when I have my daughter over and stuff at the weekend, it happened this weekend, and I was like, it just feels quiet. So I still have that in me as a parent now. I like to have a radio on. I like to have music, even if it's on in the background. I just like it. And my daughter said, "I quite like silence." I'm sort of saying, "No, I was thinking silence is like when you're dead." It's
Yeah.
like, and it's like I think I sort of said something like that to her. But I said, "No, I like some music on in the background," and I really do. So yeah, so being a parent now, and my parents, it is just that thing of that radio on, or that's a sort of soundtrack always going on in the background.
It's I mean, I've done over 500 of these episodes now, Mark, and the amount of people that, when I ask them about those early emotional memories, they've referenced being in their parents' car. Like, it's just hearing that
Right.
stuff, going on family holidays and things like that, and just hearing them kind of songs. And it's weird, isn't it, how it kind of gets into your sort
Yeah.
of fabric of you.
Yeah, and I suppose my folks did. I'm thinking about the car. They didn't really. There was music on in the car, but I remember it more so. It was always like the kitchen was the hub of the house. It was a small house, like, and you know, my folks didn't earn a lot of money at all, really. But I mean, you know, it was. I don't know. Yeah, basically, that was, like I say, it was always like my mum felt like the heart of the house in that way. So, and in the heart was the kitchen, and then there was always music going on. So, like, yeah, that's kind of how I remember it. And then I think in the car occasionally they'd have like Radio 2 on or something. So it might have been Terry Wogan in the morning when we are going
Yeah.
being driven into school. So yeah, some tunes would come on. I remember things like Baker Street. Just thinking of things that stuck up. Bruce Hornsby and the Rage as well, like, you know, the way it is, just
Just the
things like
way it
that.
is,
When I was
yeah.
going into school, great tunes. And so those tunes really, I hear them now, and I always sort of, it just takes me back. I mean, that's, you know, music's powerful in that way for the
Yeah.
nostalgia element for
Yeah.
sure. It's time travel.
I find it really weird that some songs, like, an example of that is, years ago, my kids were probably about 10 or 11. I just had the radio on in the car, and Somewhere in My Heart by Aztec Camera come on,
Brilliant.
and
Yeah.
perfect pop song, right? So
Mm.
I'm singing along, and both my kids are singing along, and I'm like, how the hell do they know this record?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
no, some records just find their
Yeah.
way, and
Yeah.
everybody just seems to know them. I mean, I guess it's down to being a great songwriter. That chorus and that verse is so catchy and
Yeah.
instantly memorable. But I was just like, how do these songs find their way? How do people like know these songs? I think my kids were like really young. It was just an
Yeah.
interesting thing.
It is mad. And my daughter's 9. And actually, I did the same thing in the car. We were driving into Oxford the other evening. And God, it was an AC/DC track came on. I was trying to sing along to it. And it's so high pitched. And she was just cracking up. But I was like, you need to know, it's AC/DC. It's like, it's a tune. And she's like, what the hell is this? But there was one, I had I won't go too far down this road, but I had a mad experience with my daughter where probably she'd have been about 3 or 4. And one of the early times that I showed her what sort of daddy does as a bit of a living, I showed her Ride playing Lannoy Point at Rob the Banks festival, is it? I think on Isle of Wight. Yeah. So I showed her that clip, and then she sort of took it in, but didn't really say anything about it. I mean, she was very young. And then like a couple of years later, I was checking out the mix of that song in the car, and I put it on, and immediately she just sort of went, "Daddy's song, Daddy's song."
Wow.
I just like looked, and I was just like, "My God!" Like, yeah, and I was like, "Yeah, it is." And it's like, so she had completely clocked it, at an age 4, and just to hear her say, she suddenly went, "Daddy's song." She was like 6 or whatever. She went, "Daddy's song." She loves that tune. She still loves that tune.
Oh,
And
that's beautiful.
yeah, it was really like, God, that's incredible. That really did go in, and you did actually take that and remember it. You just don't know when how kids or whatever, like say, as and when they absorb music.
Yeah.
But again, powerful thing with music every time.
Absolutely. Staying in the formative years, Mark, tell me the song that reminds you of your time at school, please.
Was it the beat? Best Friend. That's right, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. So I think about that because I was at middle school, and this was the music, and this tune particularly. I remember it coming on the radio at home, and it was just at the time the ska thing had happened, and I really think about that because it's the first music that I just changed my dress sense in about 2 weeks. I was suddenly like, just from looking like nothing to them suddenly becoming a rude boy. Like immediately, I just got some money from mum and went and bought the moccasins, the white talons, the black Harrington, and I absolutely loved the beat and the specials, but especially the beat were the first ones that got me onto the ska thing. And yeah, Best Friend was coming on the radio. I was trying to record it, and I had this weird reel-to-reel thing. So you recorded it from this loudspeaker on the radio. I managed to get quite a good recording of it on this reel-to-reel thing, and then just kept playing it over and over and over on this sort of reel-to-reel thing. And I probably got my mum in the background saying dinner's ready or whatever, you know what I mean? Because it's like, it's just so sort of primitive, the recording ways then. And but yeah, that really stood out for me, that track. And I suppose it still sounds amazing. And actually, I just bought that Dance Craze DVD and watched that last week. So it reminded me again of, oh yeah, and just watching Beat in those early performances. And then also realizing as well that I never, there were black and white kids at my school in Oxford. I wasn't in a posh school. I was just in a sort of middle school, which was in this estate called Barton, which was thrown up during the war. So it wasn't really supposed to stay. But so it's kind of like the next generation of people that had all been evacuated from London, I guess. So that they're the kind of kids I went to school with. So it's quite mixed, Indian, black kids, white kids. And I never even thought about, because I was so into that music at such an early stage, I never thought about race, issues, color, any of it, because I just thought bands, that's what it's about. It's about, white kids, black kids playing music together. And now I sort of think, God, that did more for race relations than any politician ever did at that time. That music was so important on so many levels for the youth, to get on and for everybody to get on. And it still sounds amazing. And those songs are amazing. And I think all those groups, those ska bands were amazing.
And I think like the as you said, it had such an impact on you that it changed how you dressed. And I think when you're young and you're looking at bands, I think certainly if we look at that era there, which was maybe 80, 81, and you're looking at the Beat, you're looking at the specials, you're looking at Madness, and I guess other music that was blowing up there, like Adam Against, Dexys, like all of these bands looked like they were in a gang, and
exactly,
they all looked like a proper firm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, And I was just absolutely mesmerized by. I remember buying Scar magazine and looking at them like that, and that's the thing, and that's what I mean. You are looking at bands with which were mixed colors, mixed,
Yeah.
right, and it's like and different ages. Like I think the guy was pretty old in the beat that was playing the saxophone and
Mm.
stuff, and it was just sort of like, wow, it's so inclusive and so cool that they were making this kind of music together. And of course, I wanted to sort of be a skinhead and get the DMs and stuff. My mum like that, you're not doing that. So they stopped me there. But I mean, I guess, but yeah, I don't know. It just seemed to be. I didn't realize how important that music was at that time for for everything, for what was going on, yeah,
Yeah.
around me. And Yeah, and I just thought, black kids are groovy, man, and like, and we, when black and white kids get together, they make incredible music like that.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I don't think Jerry Dammers gets the props he deserves. I mean, that guy was a real maverick.
amazing. Yeah, and I mean that's something I got from on that Dance Craze DVD. I was watching it, and there was I think it's an arena special, which was totally on the specials, and it kind of went to their little place, their ramshackle little room in Coventry where two tone was invented. And it was a mess, but
Mm.
Jerry was so cool in that. And actually, Terry Hall didn't hardly speak. I mean, and it kind of made me think about that shy, singery, awkward kid, because that's exactly how I felt on the early days of Ride.
Mm.
I felt really awkward with it, and yeah, I just thought I'm only doing this because I'm the only one that I kind of got this because no one else is giving me singing. So I've
Yeah.
got it's a bit that I do, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, but I mean, Dammon's absolutely, and it's stuck the keys and just the music they were feeding off that turned into that music with the kind of political and social awareness as well. I mean, like I say, Ghost Town is the sound of, for me, so many of those sort of rundown post-war cities, that I used to drive through that kind of grey. I used to follow Oxford United around. It's the first time I sort of travelled. I used to travel with the London Road Club, and it was when I used to go. The first time I toured a bit, you'd be on a bus with other fans, and you'd go to some of these. They were lower league. So some of the sort of places, from Newport to, I don't know, to Everton, to all sorts of weird ground, different grounds, and start to see England and those rows of the council estates, just society. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and then and at times it's pretty bloody grey and gloomy, and
Mm.
just think Ghost Town sums it up. And also because I had been, I remember being in a youth club because I grew up in an estate in a not in the city, Oxford city centre at all, because it's all university, but like just as you arrive into Oxford near Barton, it's a pretty rough estate, really, Riseness. I do remember there being a youth club, and I do remember it being shut down. And I was
Yeah.
thinking, like, what the fuck am I going to do now?
Yeah.
And it's because I used to love going there. I used to love it. I used to sort of let off a lot of steam, a lot of energy. I don't really know what we did. There was music playing. We sort of kicked balls around inside and just hung out with mates. But it was really important, and I loved that place. And then it
Yeah.
did. And after a while, it was sort of shut down, and it's like, well, what are we all going to do now? So those words were just perfect for me. Yeah,
Absolutely, and weirdly, speaking about sort of multicultural bands at that point, about a year ago, I spoke to Robin from UB40,
right.
and he was saying back at that point, like we was doing music that no one else was doing,
Yeah,
and it was very political as well at the time, the early stuff, and
man. 1 in 10. What a tune. What a
mate,
tune. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
and I said about how did you get a deal, and he was like, well, the first deal we got offered was by Jerry Dammers. He found them, and he was like, look, I want to sign you to Two Tone, and he said,
Wow.
we was only across in Brum from Cov, but he was like, we loved what Jerry Dammers was doing, but
Yeah,
we weren't a ska band. We wanted to be a reggae band.
yeah,
And I just
yeah,
loved at that point, there was so many bands that come through that were multicultural, that were telling it how it is. And if you're a kid then, that's
yeah.
fucking everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it is, and also it's still with me. In that way, it's just ingrained. And that dub thing is huge in Ride. It always has been. Like Steve,
Yeah.
our bass man, he's a dub. And if you slow down peace sign, it's dub. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? I mean, it's a sped up dub bass line,
Yeah.
and it's amazing. But I don't know, it kind of goes over people's heads a lot of the time. But it's so important for Ride, that dub element. And Steve,
Yeah.
I think Steve always just wanted to be in a reggae band, and I don't know how he ended
Yeah.
up in Ride. Well, we nabbed him. We stole him from a reggae band. You know, me and Andy worked it our way. You know, when we were young, we're like, we've got to get him out of that reggae band and into our band. So that's how that
Fantastic.
will happen. But there's still, but Steve, it's all about dub for Steve, and
Yeah.
that's just Stephen Law's that rhythm section. It's like Ride would be, you know, literally half the band without those guys. They really, what was it that our old American managers say? You got to give those guys a rise. It's like, so yeah. But anyway, no, absolutely, it's huge for me, dub thing, and obviously I was a pothead. You know what I mean? When I was late teenager and in my early 20s, I used to smoke a lot of pot and listen to dub stuff, and it's like, yeah, so that's a huge part of me,
Yeah.
and it always will be. You know, because I listened and appreciated music in that way, a bit high, you know, and all of that, and obviously that's the sound of Jamaica and the weed and the groove. You know, slow it down. It's a bit hot. Let's not. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
I was explaining that to my daughter as well. She said, "Why is, you know, reggae music like it's kind of quite slow?" And I say, "Yeah, because it's hot in Jamaica and people smoke this weed stuff, and it's like it's just kind of, yeah, it's just nice. It's slow it down, chill out a bit." It's like so, yeah.
Tell me the first record you remember buying from a record shop, please, Mark.
So that was did I say just can't stop it? Back to the beat,
Mm.
mirror in the bathroom, or yeah. So from that album, that is definitely the first album that I remember. I was with my mum, and I was like, I kind of had a bit of pocket money, and because of Best Friend, which I think preceded it, I was like, I've got to have that album. And yeah, so it was. I just can't stop it, and I just remember it just looks great, and I just played that album to death. You know, Twist and Crawl, Mirror in the Bathroom. I mean, it's just some of those tunes in there still sound amazing now. So yeah.
How important, in your sort of teenage years, were record shops for you?
I mean, yeah, I loved it. Yeah, thinking about it, there was one called Music Market in Oxford, or a couple, and Our Price. And I mean, I used to. That was it. Any money I made, pocket money, I'd go and buy records. So, and at that time, of course, you know, that's an investment of time. You go and buy these things. And in my teenage years, because I was a kid that had bought a lot of records, I met these guys that had, you know, the old mobile disco unit, you know, with the light boxes and stuff like that, and used to set up in pubs and play. And they'd kind of maybe they had all the gear, but they didn't maybe have all the records, or maybe, you know, they were busy. They got busy, so they kind of, in the end, they said, "God, he's got so many records, this kid." So, and he's got, you know, he's got good ones. So if we set our gear up, you can go and DJ. So actually, that was quite a good early earner for me. And because I had so many 7 inches and records, and yeah, and I suppose it's the first time that I just used to filter stuff that I thought was good to people, and then be appreciated for music that you were playing. And that was great. It was a good little learner, and I really enjoyed it because my other jobs were awful, like kind of being a porter at a hotel, and then a trapper setting off bloody clay pigeons, and then like washing up and waiting and stuff like that in the local little hotels and stuff. So that was great when the guys would set up, and it was called Purple Hearts Disco. Terrible
Oh,
name,
fantastic.
but you know, they used to set up in pubs, and it was great. I'd be there underage, probably I wasn't drinking it. I just play my records, and it worked out great. They'd take half the money and they give the half to me. So that also then made me go and keep buying. I thought, I've got a duty now to keep going and buying great, you know, 7 inches and whatever's going on now, because I'm now a DJ, going to play these records to people.
And so, in the midst of all of this,
Mm.
when did you sort of discover a guitar and stuff?
So my uncle, who got me into music initially at a young age, so it's 8, 9, he always had guitars around. He had a Hofner, couldn't afford a Gretsch at the time, so which is what I found out retrospectively. And he was a sort of a bit of a, he was in the Beach Boys fan club and stuff as well. So he got me into music, and there were always guitars around, and he would play with his fiance at the time. They'd play some guitar, you know, guitar songs, and it just blow me away. And then so I did then try at an early age to sort of try and learn guitar, but I didn't. I wasn't very good, and I had other things that I was doing, just charging around, say youth clubs or whatever. So I just kind of put it on the back burner a bit, and then I think when I got to sort of 14, 15, started to get to know Andy at school, and I still had the Hofner guitar around. My sister had learned to play it a bit better than I had. And then I just sort of, I don't know, I just had this thing. I lost my uncle so when I was about 12, which really hit me hard. So I found it hard to sort of, I don't know, just to readjust to him not being around in my life anymore. And then, so I don't know, it took a couple of years to sort of deal with that in my own kind of way. Then I was like, I've still got his guitar and I'm now going to learn to play it. And I in a weird sort of way, I sort of felt that he was still with me and helped me learn in a way, because I felt that it was something that felt so natural to me when I'd really properly committed to do it. And I did it by buying like David Bowie songbook, a Beatles songbook, and a Smith songbook. I remember the songbooks I was playing, and I started to learn to play some of those songs. I knew how they went, and I knew the rhythm of it. And then I suddenly thought, because I've learned all these chords from playing all these songs, actually I can play a lot of songs now. And then that was the time when I started to get to know Andy at training. He'd been playing guitar for a good few years before me, and he was already great on guitar. So then he kind of helped me along as well. And talking of Aztec Camera, Oblivious was an early one we used to play guitar together. Yeah. And I remember sort of learning that, and Andy was showing me like it's like this chords, and I was just like, wow. And so that was an early one that I remember playing in Andy's bedroom with him, and sort of thinking, oh, I'm starting to get okay with guitar. But it was always kind of, I don't know, I suppose I was always sort of more going to be the guy singing more, you know. But yeah, so that's how it all worked out with the guitar.
Tell us a little bit about confidence, Mark, because my early memories of watching early ride shows, like, you was hiding behind your hair and you looked quite shy. And
yeah, can't do that anymore.
but I mean, everyone was playing with confidence, but you did look like a shy young lad on stage.
I was.
Like, tell me about like that. Was confidence an issue? All of a sudden being, the front man of a band, and
it was a huge
and a big audience.
Exactly, it was a huge issue because I was putting myself into a terrifying position. Don't get me wrong, I kind of loved it, and I also sort of played on that shy boy sort of thing a bit as well, because I thought, I liked the Cure. I liked people that kind of hid a bit behind something, and I thought I was being more intriguing in that way, and also I thought people in the room. I didn't want to use the stage to sort of be, and I had gone and seen U2. I had seen sort of people that were really proper showmen. I'd seen Queen, I mean, Jesus, doesn't get much more of a showman than Freddie Mercury. So I'd seen the showman side of it, but I just thought that's not me. And I thought, I almost sort of wanted people in the room to feel that they could be me. I didn't want to sort of feel separated from the audience in that way, if that makes any sort of sense.
Absolutely.
I thought the music can do the talking here, and I can just focus, concentrate, and do my thing. So yeah, and I did feel, yeah, I wasn't confident really at all at that stage. That grew as I became a better singer and I became better at, I just got used to kind of being on stage more. But for sure, initially it was terrifying for me, definitely.
Okay. So for the next track, I'm going to ask you to tell me about your years going to nightclubs.
Oh yeah, okay. So left field, leftism. Well, this. I mean, so yeah. I mean, I do remember I went to the Marquis of Bath, one of the Marquis of Bath's raves at Longleat, and I mean, I was pretty out of it, but I'm sure I remember. I might be, I was sort of, but I'm sure left field were there, and they played and they dropped was it Melt or one of those tracks, and I'd never heard anything like it, and it just, the place was just went off completely. I'm sure they were there playing it actually, and but more as a DJ thing, so it wasn't like a performance. Um, because I just remember all of us were like, what in the hell? What just happened there? This is just, and I'd found my way into going into a few raves with a few of my mates at the time, because in the same way as Primal Scream as well, because at that time Ride kind of known, and I just felt really awkward going into clubs when and then people would be chatting to me about, I don't know, I felt really, I didn't feel anonymous anymore. Whereas when I went to raves, I felt completely anonymous and free again, and I'd just get out of it and just dance, and I absolutely loved it. It was a really liberating sort of feeling for me, and I did feel part of a movement that was happening at the time. And it did. The common denominator, I think, was trance. That sort of trancey thing that I do think we kind of have some of that in Ride, as we sort of mentioned about leaving all behind. But I mean, for me at the time, there was obviously, I was Andy Weatherall and what he was doing, Sabres and Crowd. That was brought to my attention early on by McGee and people, and then also Orbital, Left Field, for me were just on another level. And for me, why, and even people like LTJ Bookham and people like that, because I think for me they're on another level, because you didn't need to be off your head to appreciate that music. The music is so good; it always sounds incredible. I think some of the other music you did kind of need to be a bit out of it for it to be great, and then when you weren't, it just was a bit like, well, what was this? So those guys for me were like the real pioneers, and just on another level completely.
And I think that separation that you just made there, I think a lot of them songs that you probably had to be nutted to really enjoy have probably kind of faded away. But your Chimes and your Papua New Guinea's, Future Sound London, all that, they all, and left, anything of it, that they're still there, and they still sound as vital as ever.
Absolutely. And that's again, that's sort of what is that intrinsic, what is that magic thing that people did then with that music? That really separates for me.
Drugs, I think, Mark.
Well, I mean, and I mean, I did experiment at that time, and for sure it was, and also I was not like an E kid. I was more trippy sort of kid. Yeah. So the trancey, and I used to go to a lot of things called tip parties, the Infinity Projects, which were like the go and trance parties. That's the thing that I really love to go, and not a lot. I mean, maybe because I was so busy then anyway. So it's only like once every 2 or 3 months. But there was a barn not so far from Oxford where the Crips barn that used to happen in there quite a lot. And I used to go to a few of them, and I absolutely loved it. And I think also that was sort of something that inspired Paul Oakenfold and people, because they'd caught onto that. And I just, through some friends at the time, I just fell into some of those Infinity Project parties, and it was amazing. And I did take a lot from that, because from those sort of drug experiences at that time, it was something that for the next 2 months I felt so creative. I wanted to sort of make and make music. It wasn't, so whereas any other things I experimented with were like, no, that's not me at all, because I just, I've gone up and I'm down now, and that's not good. I'm not liking that feeling. And but the more mushroomy thing and the stony thing for me, that was me, and I love that, because it just felt part of creativity, my whole creative journey for me at that time. And it just made me hear things in a different way, and I think that's always sort of something that's within me and always plays a part in anything I'm creating and doing now, for sure.
Just to sort of go back a little bit before the next track, you spoke about, seeing bands like The Beat and seeing what they look like and how impactful that was. I'm presuming a lot of these experiences were watching Top of the Pops, and obviously it's a distant memory for a lot of people now, Top of the Pops. But how was that for you to go on Top of the Pops for the first time?
Pretty bloody weird. Well, actually, the first time was I was like, what have I got into here? Because the first time I was the spoof keyboard player with Primal Scream.
The first time?
Yeah, doing Loaded. And I remember thinking, I've done a really stupid thing here, because I knew that Ride were heading that way. But I just remember thinking that these guys are so out of it. We're all really out of it. We're all going to be banned here. It's like and that's including me. And then I've got to then face the rest of the band and go, sorry guys, I got, you know, banned because of, you know, being with Primal Scream, and that was, you know, everyone was pretty out of it during that Loaded sort of moment. And yeah, I looked like a Thunderbird puppet. I had no idea what I was doing there, and that, you know, I was young, and those guys, you know, they were further into the party sort of scene than I was at that point. So but bless them, you know, I felt well looked after. And that's literally, I was going to London one day, and my phone went, and it was McGee saying, Mark, Duffy hasn't got his musicians union, so he can't go on Top of the Pops. And the guys have got, do you want to go on and pretend to play keyboards? I was like, yeah, why not? Sounds fun. So then we did Loaded, and of course there's hardly any vocals on it, so Bobby didn't know what to do, and possibly not the world's best dancer, but you know, it was just, the whole thing was bizarre. But anyway, so that was the first time. And then with Ride, I think, was it Unfamiliar? We did Unfamiliar, and that, you know, it felt okay. It was just a bit weird because I think you were doing live vocals then, and then the rest of the track was backing track, so it all just, and then thought this is so important, you're going out to so many people, and I can't even hear what I'm singing. It's just weird. And it just felt, then you suddenly go, okay, I get it. This is just like a TV show. This isn't like a gig in any way. Because I know a lot of bands were like, oh, we're only going to do it if we can do it live, like New Order and stuff. And I sort of suddenly kind of got it. It's like, oh, okay. And I don't know, it just felt weird. And it sort of, I didn't think Ride were the sort of band that would end up on Top of the Pops. Not that I didn't want to be there. And I was really glad that we were there, because I just felt that we were going into ground that we didn't particularly belong to, and we were there because our first week's sales was so high. We got such a good following at that point that it just threw us in the charts really high, playing quite unusual music on Top of the Pops. And so it's great that it happened, but it did feel weird. It felt, you know, again, you know, back to the fringe sort of, it felt awkward. It did feel really awkward. And I don't know, yeah, I mean, you know, like I say, there was this mythology with Top of the Pops, but the way to get, you know, break the myth is to be on it and do it. And then you're like, okay, I get how this all works now. It's a bit weird.
All right, I'm going to take you home for track 6. A favourite song from an artist from your home county, please, Mark.
Oh yes, so I think I had to think about this a bit, because I've settled on Radiohead, to Spirit Walker, Fade Out. I love it, and I mean, and it makes me, I really respect Radiohead. I mean, we crossed paths loads with them in the early days coming out of Oxford. Obviously, I live, like, where I'm at now is just across the field from their original studio that we all used to go and use, called the Courtyard. And their management still, I think one of the managers still, like, in the next village from here. So yeah, I don't know, it was sort of, I don't know. I mean, what that band, initially we knew them, and then, wow, I mean, respect, because they just kept it really interesting, brilliant. You know, total respect for everything they've done. They didn't repeat themselves. They got huge on their own terms, and that song particularly, it makes me think of, I don't know, I might be wrong, but it just makes me think of Oxford, being in Oxford, and the rows of houses that I used to walk by so often, you know, bearing down on me, that the lyric, and the sound of that track, it just makes me think of Oxford, from an Oxford band. Yeah, and when I heard that, I just thought, that's just different class, that track, completely. And the bends, you know, for the bends onwards, that's it. Those guys were off. And you know, yeah, like, absolutely fair play to them. I just thought it's brilliant. That, I mean, again, a great intro, and that, you know, and one back to the intro thing, incredible intro. The atmosphere of that track is so strong, and I love the words, and everything about that track is just beautifully delivered.
And the video
is incredible. Absolutely, yeah. Very, you know, when videos were a real thing, that was a genius video as well. I mean, I just thought when they were really starting to hit it, and yeah, I mean, what a track. Brilliant atmosphere. Like I say, it's just, that track to me is Oxford. It's walking up the Magdalen Road. It's those rows of houses. Yeah, you know, a lyric, it just makes me think about that.
And there was so much music coming out of that time that was using sort of strings and stuff to really amplify the sort of how majestic records sounded, you know. And I don't know what it is about Street Spirit. I've listened to it a million times, Mark, but
Mm.
it gets more and more intense as it grows. And I don't
Yeah,
know what they're changing or what they're throwing in, but somehow it still just sounds huge and it gets bigger and
yeah,
bigger and bigger.
yeah,
But there's not loads being thrown at it. I don't know how they do
yeah,
it. It's
yeah.
absolutely magical.
It is magical, and that again, it sort of goes to what I was saying earlier about intros and stuff. That's the magic that we love and why we do these things, because that stuff, magic, sort of just seems to happen sometimes. You
Yeah.
can't, you can't sort of calculate, and there's not a formula for it. It's just, it is magical, and it's otherworldly. It's transcendental. So I mean, when music becomes transcendental and just lifts you, that track does it. And like I say, huge respect to those boys. And I really like the smile they're doing as well.
Mm.
So yeah, it's great. I mean, and fair play to them. I remember their management were like, well, we just want to do anything like, what towards what Ride have done, and they certainly did that and more. So it's like fair play. It's like the baton thing. You kind of start the baton run and you hand it over. I mean, Supergrass as well at that time were around, and Radiohead, Swerve Driver. There's a few of those bands all around East Oxford, and it's like a baton charge. And then, like I say, you hand the baton over, and then they go and take it, and just wow, they're gone with
Yeah.
that baton.
Yeah.
And it's great. And you know what? It's great because the music's great. And I think I was saying this to someone not long ago, that the lovely thing about, especially those bands that I mentioned, I think everyone used to talk about Oxford when you were abroad or whatever as a university sort of place. That's why people knew about Oxford. Some people mentioned the football team. That's more me, but being a season ticket holder. But I mean, and now you go around and you loads of people, when they talk about Oxford, talk about all the music that came out of there, and that wasn't the case until Ride. I mean, we were the first to sort of, I guess, open the door on it. I mean, by chance, we thought this is going to work against us coming out of Oxford, and actually we did what we did. Didn't pretend we were from Manchester, because that wasn't idea at a certain point. And then immediately A&R people kept coming because it's pretty close to London. Gave them a night out, and then all these other great bands that were sort of brewing in Oxford were discovered, and that the rest is history. Literally, I mean, rightly so. Some absolute talent that came out of Oxford, East Oxford, basically that area, because it's the Cowley Road, multicultural. You've got a Caribbean influence, you've got an Irish influence. So where the Caribbean is, you've got the weed. Do you know what I mean? The Irish music, Caribbean, plus us weird student indie kids. That's a really strong mix of people that's going to make some really interesting music, as your sort of root place where those people kind of came out of. And yeah, that's OX4. That is that area. For me, that is the postcode.
It's not easy to create a scene,
No,
like I live in Essex, and there's been some great bands come out of Essex over the years, but
yeah,
there's never been a moment like like Manchester or Liverpool and Oxford is one of them.
yeah,
The bands that I've worked with over the years and things like that, they're all like, oh, we're going to go to. It's Ian Davenport's at Courtyard, isn't he?
yeah. That's right. It is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's like,
yeah.
oh, we're going to go
Absolutely.
Ian Davenport, and
Literally
and
2 fields away from where I am now. I could walk there in 10 minutes. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, and the amount of
yeah,
people that were like, "Oh, we're going to go and do our first thing. We're going to go to Courtyard and see in
yeah.
Devonport," and because it's entrenched now that good shit comes from there.
It's true, and I mean, and I think because, yeah, like I said, I think the that Cowley Road thing, the East Oxford thing and we had venues. There were places we all rehearsed in, same spaces. So there were rehearsal spaces, there were venues, there was a bit of pop flying around. So I mean, there's a lot of students, and there's this energy where you're butting up against Oxford University. There's this mad energy exchange that goes on, and I'm not against any of those people. Boffins, a lot of them. I like all those sort of people as well, because I love Brideshead Revisited. You know what I mean? It's like I don't have anything against people like that. I don't judge people on whatever class. I don't care. If they're good people and interesting people, that's fine. So, but I think there's a real mad energy that happens there, because, like I say, if you think about it as the Oxford tour, they'll always show people around the beautiful dream inspired Oxford, and then they'll do a U-turn as soon as they hit the Cowley Road. It's like they don't go down there, but that's what I mean. It is literally next to all the enchanted sort of dream inspired, a beautiful, inspiring university city, which does inspire you because you're next to a lot of future politicians, future presidents. You know what I mean? You know, it's like there's always been that mad element that goes, and also because, crikey, you know, Lewis Carroll, C.S. Lewis, you know, Tolkien, you're in pubs where they used to sit and take mushrooms and go and write incredible, you know, you know, obvious, you know, books that changed literary history as well. So it's like that energy is there. It's like, so yeah, I just think there's something in the water, something in the air, in Oxford. There's a real, you know, there's a lot of yeah, just a real mishmash of cultures and stuff very close together. And then where I am now is slightly just outside of Oxford. And I think that's the thing then with the approximation with London as well. You're pretty close to London, so that's quite easy to go to your labels, 40, 50 minutes away on a train or an hour, you know, and it kind of makes sense, you know, that it's a sort of satellite of London in a way, but vitally here, whereas different from when you're in London, it takes an hour just to get somewhere before you even rehearse or something. Here, you just go straight to your rehearsal room and you just get on with it. There's not that same amount of distraction going on that if you're trying to do these things in London. And just like I say, the A to B is really easy here, you know, from people's homes to the rehearsal room or whatever. It's kind of, when I think about it, I think all those elements sort of helped to create that thing. And you know, we sort of shared rehearsal rooms, we shared gear, we shared crew. I mean, all the crew for Radiohead were our crew at one point, and you know, I'd still mates with all those crew boys. You know, there's a lot of crew boys that came out of Oxford, great people, great crew guys, and yeah, they're still my mates. And you know, like, so I hear lots about, you know, I did hear lots about the Radiohead tours when they were touring and stuff, because we all had the same crew and they're all still our same friends, sort of same friend circle basically.
It's your last track, Mark, and for that, I'm going to ask you to tell the listeners of this podcast about a song that you love that you think they may not know.
What did I say? Trying to think. Hold on. Oh, UFO, Big Thief.
Yeah.
Big Thief. Yeah. So I don't know what it is about this tune. So I discovered Big Thief UFO because I've been working with a band in the studio called Two Headed Horse, who are brilliant. And actually, they've just I've spoken a lot with Tim Burgess when I was on tour with him, and they do this lovely help bands type thing, and they're going to help just a bit more funds here to get the Two Headed Horse the rest of the stuff mixed, because like all bands, they have no money, but they're brilliant. I really like them. And when I started to mix one of their tracks called Shimmer, they said as a reference, I said, what's your references? They said, check out Big Thief UFOF. I was like, I've never heard of it. And so I checked it out. And then this was before we went on the last American tour. And that one track in particular, just can't stop playing it. Absolutely love it. And I didn't know about it. I mean, I guess quite a lot of people do, but so that's my latest sort of discovery. And that track particularly it's just beautiful. And you know, and like I say, it's nice when a band will, you know, give you a tip for, you know, for a mixed tip or whatever, to sort of say, hear this, and I love it. And so all through that recent American tour we did with the Charlatans, whenever I got a chance just to play a song, I just kept playing that on the tour bus or in a hotel room, and it was very comforting for me for the whole tour. That was my early track of this year. So yeah, Big Thief UFOF, yeah, it's great. And I've kind of listened to more of them now, and yeah, lots of other really great tracks, but that one particularly has just got that magic. Again, that thing we keep coming back to. It's got the magic. Yeah,
love it. Well, look, Mark, we've been speaking about so much great music, and we haven't really touched on yours too much. So, so what's happening with the new music?
New music with regards to Ride, obviously, Interplay comes out in March, and it was basically, like I say, pretty much all recorded here, and then we did a bit in Vader Studio as well. So, and it's exciting because, I mean, I spoke to Under the Radar earlier as well, and Dom, I know Dom, and he just went, you know, you do know this is your best album since Nowhere. I was like, what? And I don't know, I just had a feeling when I was listening back to the mixes, and because we went through a lot of adversity to make this record, from as everyone did with COVID, the darkness of that, and then we also then were in a kind of battle with our ex-manager who was trying to make us this sort of pension fund, who's no longer with us, and it was just horrible, legal, awful, settle out of court, horrible stuff that you read about that other bands go through, and it's like, we're going through the same thing. So which sort of threatened the existence of the band in a way. So I think it brought us closer at a time, and the thing that we are armed with and we were really good at, the four of us, is music. And I mean, so basically it kind of, I think all of those things combined to make this album brilliant. And I, as I said on the earlier interview, I don't have any plans to die yet, but I could die happy now because of this record we've just made, because I think things have always niggled me about records we've made in the past and the last two records, and I don't know, but that's just me, because I'm always going to be niggled by stuff. That's part of my thing, and but with this one, I think we've hit some places now that I just think I'm really happy with that. It's brilliant. That's a height that I thought we always could hit, and we are hitting it now. And I think this record shows that, and it's exciting because, I'm really excited about it, and I hope that we can play lots of it live. And I hope people are ready for new blood, a new sonic blood transfusion, which I think this can do for people. It did it for me and the band, and I think I hope that people are ready to go on sort of a new journey with it. And I really, I feel really good about it, I have to say. And it's been lovely that Six Music picked up on Peace Sign, and then obviously The Last Frontier just came out recently, and just the vital sort of, I mean, lots of people say, oh, it's good and all that, but I think there's been from labels to, Wichita to our management, I think across the board, people are kind of going, it's one of the best, that you've done. And I felt that as I started to hear the music, as well, I was in the middle of it, I sort of thought, we're hitting some real heights here. So I'm who knows? I'll just see what happens. And you've got to be bloody good now. There's so many good new bands coming up. So, if we're not, then they should rightly take the stage from us. Do you know what I mean? I just see it as simply as that. It's that thing in the band, The Lost Waltz, and it's like that thing where they're playing pool and knocking the balls into the pocket. And it's like, the way you survive is you got to knock the other bands into the pocket and keep your balls on the table, sort of thing. And I think this will keep the balls on the table for us for another album campaign for sure, because I think we've done really good with this.
And gigs?
So gigs, well, I know that I think we're going to be doing some shows across America, new album shows in May, and then we're going to September tour for the UK, and then before that I'm pretty sure we're looking at, we're definitely doing Fuji Rock Festival this year, and there's a Korea festival after that, and then I think we're going to do an Australian tour, so I think that's all going to be in August. I think the Australia thing is TBC, to be confirmed. And there's a few other festivals popping up now, so there are conversations happening probably as we speak about festivals that seem to keep coming on board. And I would expect to be doing some festivals this summer, but around our touring. But then I would think quite a lot more festivals next year as well, because that seems to be the way it goes with an album. It sinks in a bit, then the festivals seem to come the year later. But I don't know. I mean, like I say, I just don't know. And the lovely thing is with a record, I have no idea what's going to go on. I mean, and doors seem to keep opening, and it strengthens the feeling that we've done something really good, and that people still want us to kind of go and play some new music, as well as obviously we've been doing the Nowhere anniversary tour and stuff like that. So that feels good to me.
Wonderful. Mark, I wish you all the best with the record and the gigs, and it's been an absolute delight talking records with you, mate. Thank you so much for your time.
It's been great speaking to you too. Sometimes when interviews are good, it feels a little bit like sort of therapy. So it's almost like a therapy session, you know what I mean? So you've been one of those. Thanks for being my therapist for the last hour or so, you know what I mean?
Absolute pleasure, Mark. I'm going to press stop, but don't go anywhere.
Okay, mate.